Welcome back to the show, Chalie.
Thanks, JD. I appreciate it.
Always good to catch up with you.
Same to you, brother. Same to you.
So, do you still have the same clean date?
I do. So my clean date is February 20th of 2020. So like
You
four and a
just hit
half years.
2.5
Just had
years.
four.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes, sir.
that's awesome.
Thanks, brother.
Now, we want to do a disclaimer. Everything that we talk about in this episode is not everybody's experience, but it's your experience.
That's correct.
And I'm wondering, you were a big NA guy before when we were talking. So, what's going on? What happened?
All right. So I mean, I think in our first episode that I was on your show, and again, thank you for having me on again. I really went into my background, and I won't get into all that right now, but I'm one of those people that tried it every other way, right? Like only doing on the weekends, only doing this, only doing that. And this last time, I had never really given my all to a 12 step, and I always held back, and those were the results that I got. So this time around, I really went into it wholeheartedly. I had my reservations as far as like things about the program I didn't agree with, or things that I thought that I wouldn't follow, or whatever it was. But I just put all that stuff to the side, and I just decided to go all in. And it truly saved my life. Um, and they say that the science of it says that somewhere between 18 months and 3 years is when your your brain really starts to change. And that was truly my experience as far as decision making. Um, like for me in active addiction over 20 years, my whole life revolved around the next one. And every decision I made was, that was my motivation. And I've really started to, my brain started to change somewhere around 2.5 years. And then all of those things that I decided to ignore in 12 step because I didn't know what else to do to try to save my life, kind of all came back. And look, you put a disclaimer in the front, and I'm going to put my own personal disclaimer also, right? I'm not in the business of trashing 12 step. It's not my thing. 12 step truly saved my life. If it wasn't for NA and the people in it and my sponsor and my home group and all that stuff, I would not be sitting here talking to you right now. I truly 100% believe that. But it got to a point where there was fundamental things about 12 step that I had real questions for, and I could not get answers for. um, and there was problems that I saw with um, inclusivity and the resistance to change. I understand wanting to have the tenets of the program and stuff like that, but at what point do we change with the times? And the science just doesn't line up sometimes. And I think kind of the final straw for me was, um, there's a lot of differing opinions on MAT, on medically assisted treatment, right? I had some of my own opinions on it before really diving into the science of it and really looking at it. Um, and NA put out, Any World decided to put out a pamphlet um, about Matt. And basically, the idea was that the decisions were going to be handed down to the groups individually, and that um, for people to celebrate an anniversary or to get commitments was to be voted on in the group conscious, and and then at the same time saying that they don't have an opinion. So I saw people that wanted to um, have commitments and get involved and celebrate clean time while being on mat, and they were denied. And I just had a real problem with that.
That happened.
Um,
That happened to me on that happened to me with weed 6 years ago or 5 years ago, where inside the group they had decided to stop celebrating my clean time in AA. It wasn't clean, sober time, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But they were like, we don't want to give you a 1 year chip because you use medical marijuana in your recovery.
Right.
And I drank over that shit, you know. And it wasn't like that day. It's not like I left there and bought alcohol, but exactly a month later, I did. You know what I mean? On my 13-month anniversary, I drank, and then I drank for 9 months, and I didn't drink alcoholically for 9 months. I'll just say that. But towards the end of that 9 months, I found myself drinking a fifth of Jack in a night. You know what I mean? Like multiple nights a week. Going through a 2-liter bottle of Coke, making Jack and Cokes all night long, big glass, you know what I mean? Like a big old jar, glass jar.
Yeah.
And it just, I woke up and right around the same time you got sober is when I quit. Because I remember we were close on dates. Yours was February 20th and mine was February 29th.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I still haven't had a drink to this day.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I didn't know about that pamphlet because it seems like they're just passing the buck. Like, we don't want an opinion, and you guys in the groups need to make your own decision. Like, that's what it sounds like. The group I'm in, my home group, is an NA Zoom meeting.
Okay.
So I'm not in a clubhouse with people or in a church basement with people. We're
Right.
on Zoom from the comfort of our own homes. Every day at noon, and it's based out of Providence, Rhode Island. And
Okay.
there's a lot of old timers in that group. My sponsor just celebrated 30 years the other day.
Wow.
So I don't get pamphlets. I don't see pamphlets because I don't.
Right.
All the NA literature I have, I bought it on Amazon. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So when did this all happen?
So I made the final decision. I mean, it was not an easy decision, right? It wasn't a snap decision. It wasn't a snap judgment. It was after doing a lot of soul searching and research into the science of all of it, talking to old time members in NA, people's opinion that I respected, my sponsor, my wife. These were all people that I needed to, because I didn't want to, because when you're in 12 step and for better or for worse, we're told that people like me, people that do what I do, are going to go use, right? That's what we're told. And we're told that it's just a matter of time, right? That, and I said it. I'm not disparaging anything else. I said it. I watched people leave the program and be like, well, they're gonna. It's just a matter of time. You know what I mean? And sometimes that is the case, and sometimes it's not. So it was after a lot of soul searching, and it was about it's like right before my 4 years. So about 8 or 9 months ago, because I did not celebrate my 4-year anniversary. I didn't speak for it. I was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out at that point. I got to a point where I would bring up these fundamental things about the program that I had problems with, that I had questions about. And it was kind of, I think subconsciously, I was looking for someone to give me the answers to keep me in the rooms, and nobody could. A big issue for me from day one is being an atheist. And, they say it's not a religious program, but that's not entirely true. They say it's spiritual. It's not a religious program, but that G word gets thrown around a whole lot. And, there's steps but the steps in both programs are in all the programs. The 12 steps are the same. Right, exactly. And they all derive from AA.
I'm in Gamblers Anonymous.
Yeah, they're all the same.
I do that on the weekends, and the steps are exactly the same.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
introduced myself as JD, compulsive gambler, addict, alcoholic. If you name it, I'm probably it. That's how I introduced myself in GA.
Right.
But going their pamphlets, they're exactly the same as AA, just like NA is just like AA.
Yeah.
When I had my relapse with benzos and I was over medicating with weed, um, I went back to AA first, and that was kind of hell
Mhm.
because they weren't they I would get looks because I wanted to talk about my drug use,
Yeah.
and I would get like shot looks if I was to talk about my benzos or the amount I was smoking because I'm so far away from a drink, bro. You know what I mean? Like 4.5 years away from a drink that it's not on my mind as a problem. The things that are on my mind as problems right now and that I'm battling with is weed and benzos. And they're both around me. My wife still uses cannabis, but I fully support her using cannabis because she has MS. So I fully support her
Right.
using it for recovery. She doesn't drink. She has the same sober date as me from alcohol. And as CVS, the fucking app, it keeps on trying to get me refill my diazepam, my Valium. And if I go on there for my blood pressure medication to refill that, right at the top it says diazepam. Do you want to refill this? Like for $1, I can be high for weeks, and not many people
Right.
can do that.
Right.
And I went abstinent from my benzos. I went abstinent from weed just to try things differently this time. And in AA, for those who don't know, they only want to hear about your problems as related to alcohol. Word for word is in the preamble. And you can't talk about drugs in AA, but you can talk about drugs in NA. You can talk about alcohol in NA because in their literature, as you know, Charlie, what does it say? Alcohol is a drug, period.
Yeah. Alcohol is a drug, and I had a very similar. The very first time that I was introduced to 12 step many years ago. I'm from Philadelphia, so we have uh, we and you're from very just outside of Philly, right? So that was another thing that we were able to connect on. And we have I mean, I'm sure most people that would be watching this podcast that follow you, JD, know about Kensington. And we have it's the biggest open air drug market on the East Coast. Intervention did a whole 6-part episode about it. It's like Skid Row in LA, basically in Kensington. And there's a lot of recovery here too because of that, right? So when I first got introduced to AA, and the first AA meeting I went to, and a guy said I went to, and he named a popular drug corner in Kensington, right? And he said I went to so and so and so and so to get a drink, and I was like, what the fuck? What, I got bars where you live? They don't have bars in your neighborhood. So I didn't understand that whole keep it in the bottle thing, right? That, you don't talk, like you said, you don't talk about drugs. Now, I do have friends that are in AA, and that is, I'm not saying everywhere, right? But some of the younger members and some of the younger kind of meetings are getting away from that somewhat. Like they don't want you, going crazy, but they're okay if you mention drugs. Like
It's a
I
group
would,
by
I
group
was,
basis. When I was in LA, I was an AA dude in LA. I went to NA meetings, but I went to probably 20 meetings a week, and I'm not even exaggerating with that number. And 3 or 4 were NA, and the rest were AA. So I was more of an AA guy when I was in California. And you could talk about weed, you could talk about other drugs, you could talk about alcohol. They were really open. They were just happy you were showing up. They were
right.
happy you were there. And then I came back to conservative, middle of nowhere Pennsylvania, and they were like, "No, you can't talk about that."
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
"My
yeah.
story. I wasn't driving 2 hours to Jersey to pick up alcohol. I
Right.
was driving 2 hours to Jersey to pick up drugs. It's part of my story, and I'm not going to censor myself because you don't want to hear me say the word drug."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I drank over that shit and over that resentment that I had. And I still have a resentment with them. I need to do, and now that's why I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try it different this time because AA and NA might be different, but their NA is way more intense than AA when it comes to doing the steps. Like
That
I just got the workbook the other day in the mail, and it is
yeah,
nothing like going through AA steps. AA steps,
yeah,
sitting there with your sponsor. You read chapter 1. He's like, okay, now you're on chapter 2. I'm like,
right,
that easy? And
right.
then there's a whole entire workbook of questions you have to answer before you can move.
Yeah, I think there's 60 something questions just on step one.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
it definitely is more intense. And when I was in rehab, and my roommate, I remember he was going to AA, and he went to meet his sponsor, like to get something to eat, and he came back and he's like, "Yeah, I'm on step four. I just got," and I was like, "You mean like just then?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, we went through the first three steps at dinner," and I'm like, "That's all right, cool, man." And look, I don't, whatever, like, if that's I don't know. I don't know what's right and what's wrong, but you're right. It is definitely more intense, a more intricate uh, uh, situation when it comes to going through the steps. It definitely is.
That's
Um,
why I'm doing it through NA this time, is because I feel like that's what I need in the moment.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
when my
absolutely,
when my dad, we talked about weed before and how I use it as a medicine. But when my dad passed last June, I definitely amped up my smoking into all day, every day. And I wasn't using it as a medicine. I was using it to numb. And weed's weed. It's not like, it tears families apart, but it definitely causes you to make bad decisions. And
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
the decision was getting my psychiatrist to prescribe me Ativan, and then later getting him to prescribe me Valium instead because the Ativan wasn't working. You know what I
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So when I stopped my benzos, I said to my wife, I'm gonna stop smoking weed too because I want to do this completely different than before. So I'm just going abstinent from everything. So
And listen, look, more power to you, right? And again, I'm a big whatever works, right? Whatever works. There's no cookie cutter way to any of this. In my opinion, I think that I've really come to question the disease model and a lot of that stuff. So I just don't know anymore. I just got to a point where I felt that my questioning of the program and my questioning of the fundamental issues of it was detrimental to me and to other people. And I don't believe that I'm above a relapse or that I'm, quote unquote, drug proof or anything like that. But I don't know that I have to, and this is going to sound bad the way I say this, JD, but I don't mean it in a derogatory way towards anybody else. But I just don't know that I need to go into a room with other people every week and say that I'm powerless. I don't believe that I'm powerless today. I believe that I was powerless for a good 2.5 years, but I don't believe that I'm powerless today at 4.5 years clean or sober or whatever you want to call it. I'm not powerless over this thing anymore. At this point, it's a decision for me, and there's some things about the program that I still hold on to, the gratitude of it, right? They always say like uh, uh,
a 10 step.
yeah, what is it? A grateful addict will never use. A grateful alcoholic will never drink. I truly believe that. I believe that that's something that I've held on to from my 12-step experience, and I try to be grateful for the things in my life because yeah, everything's not rainbows and butterflies, right? But like, all I have to do is drive the 10 minutes to Kensington from where I live and see how great my life really is and how I'm just a couple bad decisions from being there, how I've been in a similar position that I'm in today and made those couple of bad decisions and ended up there. So I know that it's possible. I have a healthy fear of it, but I don't believe that I'm powerless today because I'm not powerless over that first decision. And I've come to understand that, the abstinence approach is maybe not the best approach for everybody, but it still is for me. So I've chosen to stay abstinent. I didn't make this decision so that I could smoke weed on the weekends or have a beer watching the Eagles game. I made this decision because I just didn't feel that it was beneficial to my life anymore. And so I did what I feel is the best thing for me and for my life and for my family. And I have been happier since I made this decision because I felt that I was lying to myself. Now, again, I'll go back to the I would never tell somebody to not go to 12 step. I would never deter somebody from going to 12 step. I would never walk into a rehab and tell those people to not go check out AA, NA, CA, any of that, right? Because I believe that it truly saved my life. It was there at a time when I needed it. And it got to a point where I feel that, and it's going to sound like I'm an egomaniac or that I think that I'm the smartest guy in the room, but I just feel that I got to a point where I kind of outgrew it. And the best way, I feel that my wife kind of explained it to me, is the way that she kind of saw it was, somebody who kind of gets away from religion, right? That it was there at a point in your life when maybe you needed it and you needed it at that time, but then you start to question things, and maybe you walk away from the church or whatever that may be. And I think that was kind of a good comparison. Yeah, man. Again, I don't know what the future holds. I just know that I don't want to pick up today. My life is too good for a drink or a drug today, man. It really is. And but I just, there's just too many things that I had questions for that people couldn't give me answers, and I just feel that I wasn't doing any good in that program. I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain as far as giving back what I was so freely given because I had too many questions. And
Yeah,
I was
you weren't
questioning
out
the process.
you weren't out there sponsoring people
No,
or anything like that. You know what
no,
I mean? It's not like you were in people's ears. It's not like you brought people
no,
with you. It's not like you walked into a meeting and said, "Everybody in here is fake. Get the fuck out of here and follow
no,
me."
not at all.
Or,
Not at all.
I mean, and I knew you, and I'm saying you didn't because I know you, and you wouldn't do that. Disparage people from whatever's working.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. The only thing that I did say, and it wasn't anything like really, terrible. It was just a genuine question or a genuine statement that I was making was, we talked about medication, right? You talked about medication, and I'm what they call, dual diagnosed. I'm been diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and I take medication every day for it. I take 20 milligrams of Celexa, and in the NA literature, it says no mood or mind altering substances, right? And they want to be very, stringent on that statement, right? Well, if that statement is going to hold true, then I don't have, and I said this to my home group members, if that's because when we got into this whole discussion of letting people on medically assisted treatment celebrate or have a commitment. And I said, okay, so then I don't have the almost 4 years at the time that I have because I take Celexa every morning. And I got, these weird looks. And I'm like, well, that's medication that a doctor told me I should take for my uh, mental illness, for the lack of a better term. I mean, that's, and this is what we're talking about, right? We serve coffee. That's a mood and mind altering substance. If you're not drinking coffee in these meetings, you're walking in with a Monster or a Red Bull. All of us are outside afterwards smoking a vape or a cigarette, right?
Don't forget about
So it's
Celsius. Don't forget about
exactly right. So and when I said that to my home group members, I didn't say it in a meeting. I said it in a group conscious just because I was trying to make the point that none of us are doctors, and it says that in our literature. We're not doctors, and it's not our job to make those decisions.
And for people that don't know, medically assisted treatment is methadone, it's Suboxone,
The
it's Suboxone,
boxing, yes,
Vivitrol, it's
yes,
marijuana. It's a lot of things like that that a doctor prescribes, and you take it as prescribed. Now, like me, if you all of a sudden start abusing weed or abusing your Suboxone, then yeah, you're probably not clean or sober. But I fully believe in the methadone program, and I mean, methadone is like the bottom tier in my opinion when it comes to Matt. I feel like you shouldn't be on it long term, but I feel like it's what's necessary early in recovery. There's a lot of people that are, I'd rather them on methadone than fentanyl. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely.
You know, and
Absolutely.
I feel like they should celebrate their clean time from fentanyl because that's all the time that they could be dead somewhere.
I
Talking about
100%
Kensington,
agree.
people are dying every day in Kensington, and it's not from methadone; it's from fentanyl. Like, let's be real. People that are dying in Kensington are not dying from methadone. You gave me an idea. I should get. I've had a guy on here from Skid Row, and I've had a girl on here from Kensington. I feel like I should bring them together and debate.
That would be a pretty awesome episode, man. That would be pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you, JD. I don't and I don't feel that it's I just don't feel that it's our place to tell somebody that they shouldn't be able to celebrate, some clean or sober time because, they're getting a medication from a doctor to help them to get that time. Like I said, if I don't take my medication because I feel pressure from the people in my home group or my sponsor, um, maybe I fall into a deeper depression. And maybe I pick up over it. I don't know. But as far as the literature goes, there's no differentiation between the medication that I take and the medication that they take, because
Nope.
at the end of the day, my medication is literally categorized as a mood stabilizer.
Yeah, and you're right. In
So,
the literature, it says we sought help through psychiatry, and none of those methods were sufficient for us. It literally says it in the what is it? What is the NA program, or who is?
mhm,
Why are we an
yeah,
addict? It's
yeah,
in one of those
yeah. One
readings.
of the preambles, yeah.
One of the preambles says, "I we sought help through prayer, or no, we sought help through
Prayer,
psychiatry.
we sought help through prayer, meditation, and psychiatry when none of those.
None of those were sufficient for us.
Right, right.
But psychiatry has been sufficient for me.
It's
Um,
been great for me, yeah.
I take Lamictal for I'm bipolar, so I
Okay.
take Lamictal, and I'm not going to stop taking Lamictal because somebody says I'm not clean if I don't take it.
Right.
Like, you don't understand what's going on in my brain right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, man, it for me, and there was there was other issues that I had with things, but I really won't go into too much of it. Just because I don't want to sound like I'm trashing it, because I'm really not trying to trash it. I just got to a point where it just wasn't working for me anymore, and I made this decision after a lot of soul searching, and also fully understanding that if I step away and I feel any closer to picking up, that it's still there. And I
Yeah,
know that it has worked and can work for me. Right. And that was also, a big thing that me and my wife talked about was, because she was scared, right? My wife doesn't know me in active addiction, right? Me and my wife met when I was, I don't know, 6 months clean, and then started dating a little while after that, and we've been together just over 4 year, or just had our 4 year anniversary of dating, and coming up next month will be our 1 year wedding anniversary. So she doesn't know that Chalie, right? And I don't want her to ever meet that Chalie, because that Chalie is a scumbag, right? So of course she was a little scared, that she's like, wait a minute, this thing that you've been doing since I've known you, since day one, that you go to, at bare minimum, one or two, three, four times a week, and going to breakfast with my sponsee kind of family tree, or whatever you want to call that. um, you know, uh, a lot of Sundays, and all my friends were in the program, other than my family and my brother. Like, I really didn't have any friends that were outside of NA. She was very scared. She was worried, and I made it extremely clear to her that if I felt that there was any backsliding, that I would go back. And I just don't feel that way. I just don't feel powerless today.
yeah. NA is like college; it's always going to be there if you feel like you want to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And you know, if you go back, they're going to accept you. You know
Of
what I
course.
mean, and take
Of
you right
course.
back again.
And
Um,
I've continued to go to, I always kept a tight circle, even in the rooms. I was, for the most part, friendly with just about everybody. Um, but I kept kind of a tight circle, and good friends of mine, and like my old sponsor and stuff like that. Like I've gone to their anniversaries because I still want to go and support the people that I love, right? So like, even just last month, uh, the guy who's probably still, was my best friend in the rooms and is still a very, very good friend of mine, probably still my best friend. I went to his anniversary in July, and like you said, people are like, "Oh man, good to see you," and how you doing? Everything okay? And I have a lot of those people that I was friends with in the rooms, and still on social media, and I still talk to my old sponsor here and there, and I still talk to these people, and know that if I had a real problem or questions, that I could pick up the phone and call just about all of those people, right? Um, so I still, there'll be a time where I still continue to go to good friends, anniversaries, and kind of get to see the people that I care about and love and am happy for and proud of. Um, I just got to a point where it's just not for me anymore, and I think that that's okay. For right now, it's okay. Um, I don't want to pick up. I still believe that abstinence is the best decision for me because I have a proven track record of getting clean and sober, and then, well, I can just smoke, or I can just do this, or and it never worked out for me. This is the thing that worked, the abstinence. So I'm going to continue doing that. I don't have a desire to pick up anything, and I really don't see that changing. So
and
it's
you're
just kind
obviously
of where I'm at.
you still have a sense of humor about it because I didn't even know you were in that Dark Side of the Spoon group
Yeah.
on Facebook.
Ah, that's
And
a
I
great.
saw your name pop up in my notifications. I'm like, oh, no way is he fucking in this group too.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
So
man.
it's not like you lost your sense of humor over drug culture because
No,
for
definitely
those who
not. I'll
don't know,
never.
the Spoon is a Facebook group to where people post addiction memes, and it's hilarious.
It
Um,
is.
the shit they post is funny as hell, and
It
I put
absolutely
there
is.
as much as possible too. Whether I create my own meme or whether I see it floating around, I put it in that group right away.
Yeah.
And I always got to make sure I'm not reposting because that's annoying if you're reposting the same meme. Somebody repost. I'm in a ton of Facebook groups. I didn't really get into Facebook groups until like the last year or so. I'm in a
Okay.
bunch of like Quentin Tarantino groups. I'm in a Martin Scorsese group, and I posted this thing in a Scorsese group about Boardwalk Empire because Martin Scorsese directed the first episode of Boardwalk Empire, which is about, did you ever watch Boardwalk Empire?
No, I never got into it.
It happened during the Prohibition. Speaking of abstinence, it happened during Prohibition in 1920s in Atlantic City, and Martin Scorsese directed the first episode. And I posted this long thing about Scorsese in the first episode and watching Boardwalk Empire over. I got like, I don't know, 600 likes or something like that. 4 days later, somebody posted word for word what I posted with the same exact picture that I used for that. I'm like, and I started blowing them up. I took a screenshot of my of my post, and I was like, bro, why are you stealing my post?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you doing? And I thought it was so weird that somebody else would post word
Yeah.
for word what I wrote, like just plagiarism straight up. And then people were reacting, like laughing at my comment because I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, bro?
Yeah. Yeah.
People are weird, man. Um, yeah, I'm glad that it's working for you, and it works different for everybody. And you're right. Sometimes your brain changes, and sometimes you outgrow things that used to be, something that was so close to you, and sometimes we outgrow things, and it's
Yeah.
as simple as that. Like you said, our brain chemistry changes over time, and it's always going to change. I thought it was like 7 years, something like that, like every 7 years.
Well, yeah. So that's just just in general, just as far as your brain chemistry, and I don't even know there's some contradictions about that science too, if that's even necessarily true. But there is some science to it. There's some research that says that that is true. But as far as the addict's mindset and our decision making processes and stuff like that, it's usually somewhere between 18 months and 36 months, so a year and a half to 3 years, for your decision making to truly change. And like I said, that was my experience. It was right around like 2 to 2.5 years where my first reaction to a lot of things, my first thought wasn't to pick up. Because even a year clean, and things are going good, and it was like, I get into an argument with my girl, or something bad happens, and I'm like, man, fuck this, I'm just gonna, do this and do that, and um, I didn't act on it, of course, but it was a thought, because that was my answer to everything. You know what I mean? That was our answer to if it was sunny, if it was rainy, if you stubbed your toe, if it was a good day, if it was a bad day. I didn't
Your
use
team won. If
because
your team lost, you were going to celebrate or you were going to mourn.
absolutely. So, I forget what it was exactly, JD, but there was some, kind of a big thing happened, and after it happened, something bad happened. I went through it and everything, and I was like, man, I didn't even think about like picking up during all of that. I didn't think about, you know, oh well, I could just smoke, or I'd be okay, or just one, like we tell ourselves, right? And I was like, man, and then I really started to notice that just my decision making really started to change, and got away from that addict's mindset.
Yeah. And I think it's important that you still talk to your sponsor and that you're still somewhat in his life, because it's going to keep you honest. Because my relapse happened, as they always say, your relapse happens way before you put the drug into your body.
Right.
And what do they say? You stop going to meetings, you stop talking to your sponsor, you stop talking to your higher power. And all those things are why I ended up failing grieving my dad properly, because I didn't know how to grieve. I thought I knew. I thought I was doing this right by getting on medications and, using my marijuana as much as I was. I thought I was managing. But looking back, I was like, nope, that was a mismanagement. That was,
Mm,
mistake after mistake that I was making. And I think, and I wasn't talking to my sponsor whatsoever, at least my old sponsor. And now I have a new sponsor that I'm in communication with. He's up in Rhode Island and I'm down here. And it's weird. My AA sponsor, because went to both. My AA sponsor lives under me. And I met him in the rooms, and it turns out he literally lives like the first floor and I'm on the second. He's across the hall. He's across the hall from me and down one.
yeah.
And I see him every time I'm outside smoking a cigarette. He'll be like, "Did you work on step 4 yet?" Like he moved me to step 4 so quickly, and I'm going to go through my step 4 with him, but I'm not going to go through with him until I do it through NA and just basically read him. I'm going to do a step 4 through NA and take it to him and go, okay, now I have my step 4 written. Now we can go through, because it's the same. It's the same shit.
Yeah.
It's the same exact step 4.
Yeah.
Search is what is it? Searching and moral inventory.
An honest and moral inventory of, I forget the exact wording, of
Yeah,
all of our
it's
wrongdoings, essentially.
it's an inventory list. It's a
Right.
searching and fearless
This moral inventory of our, yeah,
addiction.
like, yeah, spiritual shortcomings and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
character
Um,
defects or sticks. They're all the same. The only
Absolutely. Well,
10.
that was another thing in kind of going through this process. That in doing research about the program and about 12 step in general, and um, NA was started by Jimmy K because he was essentially shunned from AA because he talked about drugs and his he had questioned uh AA as far as, well, it doesn't say anywhere in the literature about the whole, keeping it in the bottle culture. As a matter of fact, Bill
Bill
W.
W.
and
talks
Dr.
about
Bill talk.
C.
Yes, right. So that was something that was taken up by members. That whole don't talk about drugs, only talk about alcohol. It wasn't something that was in the literature necessarily. So Jimmy K felt that he was being shunned and for the wrong reasons or whatever, and that's why he started NA. So that was another thing I kind of didn't really make a whole lot of sense, man. It was like, wait a minute, if it's not even in the literature, why are we not allowed to talk about it? Or why but whatever. That's how they do their 12 step, and listen, it works for a lot of people. Um, I personally know a ton of people that got clean and sober in any of the 12 steps, like you said, NA, AA, GA. I know people that have done it and have great lives today. Um, but I also know that there's a lot of people that haven't, and that were forced into the rooms and question things. And another big problem that I had, JD, and this is the one thing where I feel, and I know that um there's going to be like real 12 steppers that are going to be like, this guy is out of his mind, right? But the other big problem that I had was, anytime that somebody stays clean and sober and is doing all the right things, right? It's because of your higher power and the rooms and your sponsor, right? But if you walk out and you pick up, it's all on you. And I had a big problem with that. And some people told me, well, that's your ego. Your ego wants the recognition for staying clean and sober. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't agree that it's just my ego that wants the recognition. I just believe that if there should be some positive reinforcement. And when you're doing the right thing and you're doing all the things that they're telling you to do, and it works out, and you are racking up days and weeks and months and years, you get none of that positive reinforcement. It's only because you gave it up to your higher power. You let your sponsor you. But then if you step out of the rooms and you pick up, it's what didn't you do? So, that got to be a problem for me, man. And
It's
I couldn't reconcile it in my own brain.
it's there's a comedian, Daniel Sloss. He talks about something that you're kind of describing. Um, he said that people that they're thanking God when they should, like somebody gets rid of cancer, and the patient's like, "Oh, thank God." He's like, "Thank God, thank me. I'm the one that got rid of it." But if he can't get rid of cancer, it's on the doctor who couldn't get rid of it.
That's a good
And
analogy.
and he was saying, he goes, "I'm not a father," which he is now. But he goes, "I'm not a father, but I have to feel like it's the same thing as when the kids come down on Christmas morning and thank Santa for all their gifts."
That's a I mean, I feel like you hit exactly what I'm trying to say on the head. You hit the nail on the head, man. And that's um I would try to talk to old timers about that whole thing, and you don't really get answers. You just get, basically, the answer is
Pray on it.
stop question. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's another big problem for me personally, right? I had gotten to a point where I accepted that I hate the whole, that chair could be your higher power. No, fuck you. No, it can't. Excuse my language. The chair can't be my higher power. Okay. So what it got to a point for me was that NA as a whole became my higher power, because the definition of a higher power is a a something that can do, a powerful thing that can do something that you yourself cannot do. And for me personally, I got to a point where I accepted that NA as a whole was my higher power, not the rooms, not my home group, not my sponsor, not just as a whole, because they were saving millions of lives, right? And that's, but you can't pray to a 12-step program. You can't go home and let your knees hit the floor and pray to Jimmy K. That's just not how it works. So I didn't know how to just, let go and let God. Um,
Great.
and when they get to, like you said, man, right? You said it. Like when you get to those tough questions that people don't really have answers for, because there is no answer in the literature for some of these questions, because they didn't think about these questions 70 years ago when this program was derived, or I'm sorry, 90 years ago when AA was started.
Yeah, 70 years. It's 1954, right, for NA.
For NA, but AA goes back to the 30s.
Yeah, it does. 19. I
So
think the big book was written in 1939.
yeah, so like 90 years almost,
Yeah.
85 years ago.
Yep.
So, some of these questions there's never going to be an answer for it, right? Because this is where kind of the faith of the program comes into it. You have to have faith that this sponsor is going to help you. You have to have faith that these steps are going to help you. You have to have faith that if you keep showing up to this room every week, that you're going to get the things you're looking for. You have to have faith that these things are going to help you keep, get clean and sober. And I truly had that faith for a long time. And I kept coming back and I kept pushing down the questions that I had because it was working and I didn't want to question it. But then when it got to a point when I felt that I disagreed with the whole powerless thing, I really had a serious problem with that because I don't feel powerless anymore. And then when I started asking questions and some of those tough questions that nobody has answers to, and even the guys and girls, the men and women that say that they're the literature gurus and they can't give me answers, and their answer inevitably would be pray on it,
On it.
give it up to God, let go and let God. And that's not adequate. It's not an adequate answer for somebody who's truly trying to bring their recovery into the next level, that has a little bit of clean time and is trying to find reasons to stay in this program and be a productive member in this program and pass along the tenets of this program to the next addict. And when the answer is pray on it, I couldn't reconcile these things, JD. And it just, and that's where it kind of all came out in the wash, and and I had to make this decision. But again, that's just for me.
I don't blame you, and I don't think that you're doing anything wrong. I think that if anything, you're doing it the right way. You're not completely distancing yourself from the program because you still have friends that are in. It's not like you were like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck
Right,
you, fuck you, and I'm out. Like, you know what
right,
I mean? It's
right,
not
right,
like
right.
it's a decision for yourself and what's best for you right now, and I fully support that.
I
Um,
appreciate that, brother.
it's 2024. It's time that people make their own decisions for the best of their. And I know how you are when it comes to things that you firmly believe in. How do I say this? You do your work, you do your homework, you do your research before you make decisions. You just don't jump into, make rash
Right,
decisions.
right.
So that no, I'm just happy that you're still clean and sober, man, and you're
Me
still active.
too. Thank you.
And that's, to me, that's all very matters. You're not putting a drug inside of you, you're not drinking. Then whatever way you want to stay sober or stay clean, I'm all for it, man. 'Cause it's obviously working for you.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.